picture this, right? You've just stepped off a brutal, just bone-rattling 12-hour flight.
Oh, the worst.
It's the absolute worst. Your body clock is completely shattered. The fluorescent lights in the arrivals hall are just like buzzing with that harsh glare.
Yeah.
And your phone is hanging on for dear life at, what, 3% battery?
If you're lucky.
Exactly. So you finally shuffle your way to the front of the line, and you're standing right in front of that imposing glass immigration booth. And the officer looks up. No smile. No, hey, how was your flight? Just this blank, unreadable stare. And in that exact moment, what you probably don't realize is that before you've even unzipped your bag, before you've even said hello, you have already taken and potentially failed the most important part of the interrogation.
It's so true. I mean, that spike of adrenaline, that sudden urge to just like over-explain your entire existence to a stranger behind glass.
Yes. Why do we do that?
Well, we all know that feeling, right? It's this universal human reaction to sudden opaque authority. But the reason we feel so intimidated is that we fundamentally misunderstand the game being played.
Which is exactly what we're decoding today on this deep dive. We are breaking down the hidden psychology and the insider logic of international airport customs and immigration.
Yeah, the real mechanics of it.
Right, because we're going to explore this sort of secret 2026 interrogation script that these massive border agencies use. How they read you before a single word is spoken.
It's fascinating stuff.
It really is. And the goal here isn't just to help you, the listener, survive the checkpoint. It's to completely demystify this invisible machine behind the glass, transforming that whole exhausting gauntlet into something you can navigate with just, well, absolute confidence.
And to do that, we really have to start with a massive paradigm shift.
Okay, lay it on me.
Well, it's about what is actually happening at that counter. Because most of us, we treat immigration like a conversation, right?
Sure, like an interview.
Exactly. We think it's an improvised Q&A session where the officer is trying to figure out who we are from scratch. But that is entirely backwards.
Wait, backwards how?
Immigration is not a conversation. It is a highly calculated data matching audit.
An audit?
Right. They are not discovering you, they are verifying you.
Okay, so if it's an audit, that completely changes the timeline, doesn't it? That means the test doesn't begin with the first verbal question.
No, not at all.
It begins the second you step up to the line.
It actually starts hours before that interaction. We have to look at this concept of the digital ghost, or some call it the digital twin.
Digital ghost, I like that.
Yeah, so by the time you're standing at that counter, the officer doesn't just see a tired traveler, thanks to advanced passenger information systems.
Which are everywhere now.
Everywhere. Airlines are legally required to transmit this data globally before a plane even takes off. So the officer is looking at a screen that already has your flight history, your visa type, your seat assignment, how you paid for your ticket.
Bro, even how you paid.
Oh, yeah. Plus, a comprehensive algorithmic passenger profile. They already know the answers to almost everything they're about to ask you.
Wait, okay, hold on. If they already have all the answers on their screen right there, what is the point of the interrogation? Like, why not just scan the passport and wave me through?
Because the data only tells them the who.
Right.
Like, the physical interaction tells them the what next.
Oh, okay.
They are testing your physical and verbal behavior against the data they already have, and they're looking for friction.
Friction.
Yeah, the psychological term here is cognitive load. They want to see if your physical body reacts with the ease of someone telling the truth, or, the hesitation of someone trying to manage a deception.
I see.
And that physical test, it starts the very moment they say, "May I see your passport?"
Oh man, the dreaded passport handoff. I feel like this is the exact moment where the most innocent people just completely stumble.
Oh, absolutely.
You step up, they ask for the document, and suddenly you're doing what I like to call zipper wrestling.
Zipper wrestling. Yeah.
Right. You're digging frantically through this overstuffed backpack. A boarding pass falls on the floor. You've got a half-empty coffee in one hand. You're muttering like, yes. So 1 second, I know I put it right here.
And in the security world, we actually call that a failure of the 3-second rule.
The 3-second rule.
Yeah. Immigration officers are highly trained behavioral analysts. They are watching for micro hesitations. So that half second of panic, the frantic physical searching, your voice cracking, the unnecessary apologies.
Sorry, I'm just so tired stuff.
Exactly. It all signals unpredictability. When you fumble, you are signaling cognitive overload. And to a federal agent managing the risk of, thousands of passengers an hour, unpredictability is the ultimate red flag.
Wow.
They aren't necessarily thinking, oh, this person looks guilty of a massive crime. They're thinking you look unprepared and overwhelmed.
Which makes them wonder what else is going on.
Exactly. It triggers this algorithmic assumption. If they can't manage their basic travel documents, what else are they mishandling or hiding?
Okay, let's unpack this, because the analogy that comes to my mind is taking an open book test.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. The teacher already has the answer key, and you have the textbook right in front of you. But instead of grading you on the final answer, they are grading you on how nervously you flip the pages to find it. They're grading your composure.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. The document itself is secondary in that first moment. The behavioral baseline you establish is what actually matters.
Which means the smartest thing a traveler can do isn't about, memorizing complex legal answers. It's about systemizing the handoff.
Yes, keep it simple.
The physical act needs to be frictionless.
Yeah.
Keep the passport in a neck pouch or maybe a dedicated easy access outer pocket. And when the officer asks for it, you just hand it over smoothly in one clean motion and say, here it is. No jokes to cut the tension. No rambling apologies about being tired. No extra chatter.
Just silence.
Right, because in this environment, calm is literal currency.
It really is. And silence is incredibly powerful. Once you establish that baseline of physical composure, the officer will transition to verbal anchoring.
Okay, verbal anchoring, what does that look like?
Well, they've verified the physical body matches the digital ghost. Now, they need to anchor your timeline and your purpose to see if it aligns with their risk algorithms. This usually begins with deceptively simple questions like, where are you flying from? Or how long will you stay?
And on paper, those sound like the easiest questions in the world.
Right.
But let's factor in the reality of international travel. Your brain is absolute mush from crossing 6 time zones.
Oh, yeah, you're a zombie.
So when they ask, how long will you stay? Instead of just giving a number, you start narrating this chaotic, wandering backstory. Well, I'm hoping to stay for maybe 2 weeks, but my friend from college might invite me to go out to the coast for a few days, so it really depends on her schedule.
And just like that, boom, you've painted a target on your back.
Over a perfectly innocent answer.
Because we have to look at the macro system here. Every country rigorously tracks visitors who overstay their visas. It's like one of their primary security and economic metrics.
Makes sense.
So when you ramble and give a non-committal answer, you instantly fit the psychological profile of a drift risk.
A drift risk. I love that term.
Yeah, you sound like someone who doesn't have a solid plan, which means you don't have a solid incentive to leave. The system requires precise, unshakable numbers.
Just give them the data.
Exactly. 10 days for vacation. End of sentence. The less you say, the less cognitive load you display, and the faster the algorithm clears you.
Okay, and that leads perfectly into the next major hurdle, which is the purpose of the trip.
Yes, the big one.
The classic question, what is the purpose of your visit? The golden rule of travel usually dictates sticking to 3 clean, broad categories, right? Tourism, business, or education.
Usually, yes.
But I want to push back on this and play devil's advocate for a second. Let's say someone is a retired grandparent and they're flying out to visit their daughter because she just had a baby.
Okay, common scenario.
Very common. They're going to help her with the new grandkids. Why wouldn't they just be totally honest and say, I'm here to help my family? I mean, that's a beautiful, universally understood human experience.
It is a beautiful human experience, but it collides violently with how immigration law interprets our everyday language.
Really? How so?
This phenomenon is known as the help trap.
The help trap.
Yeah. To a grandparent, helping with the grandkids is family bonding. But to an immigration officer who is operating strictly by legal definitions, the word help is a trigger word.
A trigger word. Wait, for what?
Whether it's helping with childcare, helping fix up a friend's house, or, helping at a family business, help sounds dangerously close to unpaid labor.
Wait, really? They hear a grandmother say help, and their mind jumps to illegal employment.
We have to remember why tourist visas exist in the first place.
Right.
They are designed to allow visitors to inject money into the local economy without displacing domestic workers.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah. So from a strictly legal standpoint, if you are providing a service, even an unpaid one, that a local citizen could theoretically be hired and paid to do, like a nanny or a contractor.
You're engaging in work.
Exactly. You are potentially violating the terms of a tourist visa, even if not a single dollar changes hands.
That is wild. But I mean, it makes perfect sense when you view it through the lens of a massive, unfeeling bureaucracy.
Exactly.
So how do you communicate the truth without triggering that tripwire?
You simply reframe the narrative to fit the legal definition of your visa.
Okay, give me an example.
So instead of saying, I'm here to help my daughter with the baby, you say, I am visiting my daughter and grandchildren for 2 weeks.
Visiting.
Right. It is the exact same trip. You haven't lied, but you have removed the colloquial trigger word that causes their system to flag you for labor violations.
Okay, so they verified who I am, they've verified my timeline, and they've ensured my purpose doesn't violate local labor laws. But proving my identity and my immediate intent doesn't prove what I'm planning to do when my visa expires.
Yeah.
How do they test that?
That is the pivot to exit incentives. They need to evaluate your roots and your stability. And the most common tool they use for this is the question, what do you do for work?
Right, the small talk question.
But we need to be very clear. This is never small talk.
Never.
Never. They do not care about your career aspirations or your corporate ladder. Work is simply a proxy metric for stability.
Okay, that makes sense.
A steady job means you have roots back home, you have a reliable income, societal obligations. Roots mean you are statistically highly likely to return home and not become a burden on their state.
Okay, but the modern workforce is incredibly fragmented right now.
True.
What if someone doesn't have a traditional W-2 job? What if they're retired? Or maybe they were just laid off and they're taking a mental health trip before job hunting.
Right, the gig economy, sabbaticals, all of that.
Yeah. Because if the officer asks what you do and you start giving them this messy, emotional life story about how you just quit your accounting gig to find yourself in the mountains.
Might do that.
To a risk algorithm, that sounds like a massive red flag, doesn't it?
It is the ultimate red flag. Rambling about unemployment signals chaos, financial instability, and a lack of ties to a home country. It just screams overstay risk.
But you also can't lie to a federal officer.
No, absolutely not. The solution here is structured reframing. You must use clean, definitive labels that project control.
Okay, structured reframing. How does a retired person do that?
Well, if you are retired, you must realize that is your superpower in this situation.
Really?
Yes, simply say I'm retired, because to the algorithm, retired signals that you have the time and the accumulated wealth to travel legitimately without needing to steal local jobs.
Okay, that's great. And what about for the person between jobs?
You frame it as a deliberate transition. You say, I recently finished a role and I am taking a short vacation before starting my next funk of work.
Starting my next phase. I like that.
It shows you are in control of your timeline. You are managing your life, not aimlessly drifting away from it.
It's all about projecting an organized life that you are eager to get back to.
Exactly.
And speaking of organization, they also test this structure by asking about your companions, right? Like, are you traveling alone? Or do you have family here?
Yes. And this is where we return to the concept of the digital ghost. They already know if you were traveling alone.
Right. They have the flight manifest.
Your airline data, your passenger name record, your seat assignment, it's all cross-referenced.
So don't lie.
Never. If you casually say you were traveling with a friend, but that friend isn't on the same flight manifest, or they aren't standing physically with you,
Oh, boy.
and then you start over-explaining how you actually met them on an online forum and they are flying in on a different airline from a different city.
Yeah, your cognitive load spikes.
Your story becomes convoluted and you lose all credibility. Keep it factual and verify exactly what the data already says.
Let's talk about the family question, though. Do you have family in this country? I know so many people who panic at this question.
It's a tricky one.
They assume that admitting they have a sister living in London or Tokyo is going to get them instantly denied because the officer will think they're moving in forever.
Well, it certainly won't get you denied automatically, but having family does actively increase your risk profile.
Because you have a free couch to sleep on.
Exactly. You have a free place to live, a local support network, and an emotional anchor in the destination country.
That is risky for them.
It is. But the friction point here is that if you lie and say no out of fear, but their background system, which often links global addresses and surnames, shows a close relative at your stated destination,
You're caught.
you are caught in a lie and heading straight to a secondary interrogation room.
So the strategy isn't to hide the risk. It's to neutralize the risk before the officer even has to ask about it.
Precisely. You give them the exit strategy immediately.
How do you do that naturally?
Don't just say, yes, my sister lives here, and then sit there in silence waiting for them to cross-examine you. You anchor the family connection directly to your departure.
Ah,
You say, yes, my sister lives here. I'm visiting her for 10 days, and I'm flying home on the 18th.
nice.
You acknowledge the algorithmic risk, but you instantly neutralize it by providing the hard end date. You do the heavy lifting for the officer so they don't have to dig for it.
The efficiency of that is just brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've navigated the physical composure test. We've safely anchored our timeline and purpose. We've proven our stability and neutralized our risk profile.
You're doing great so far.
But now we walk right into the psychological trap of the honesty test. And this involves transitioning from immigration to customs.
Yes. And the officer will often transition phases by asking a memory question. Something that sounds incredibly conversational, like, have you been to this country before?
Which again, they already know. They can see every entry and exit stamp on my digital profile.
Exactly. They aren't asking for the information. They are establishing a behavioral baseline for recall.
Oh, that's sneaky.
They are watching to see if your eyes dart around, if your breathing changes, or if your voice wavers while you try to calculate whether it was, 2018 or 2019.
Because memory retrieval looks different than making things up.
Right. And you do not need perfect chronological recall. A calm, honest approximation like, yes, I was here about 2 years ago for business is perfectly fine.
Just a normal reaction.
Yeah, they just want to see what your body does when asked to retrieve a fact. Because that sets the physiological stage for the ultimate behavioral test. Do you have anything to declare?
Okay, here is where the psychology gets incredibly fascinating to me. Because as tired, stressed travelers, we treat that customs question exactly like a pop-up ad on a website.
A pop-up ad?
Yeah, you know the feeling. You're trying to read an article. A massive, annoying ad blocks the entire screen, and you don't even read what it says.
Oh, right, yeah.
You just frantically click the X or no to make it go away so you can get to your content. At the airport, baggage claim is our content.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right, so when they ask if we have anything to declare, we just blurt out no on pure, unthinking reflex.
And that pop-up ad reflex is a highly dangerous behavioral response. What travelers desperately need to realize is that customs officers are not just looking for international smugglers moving vast quantities of contraband.
They are.
No, they are looking for the physiological signs of deception. And the truth is, every day, mundane items can cause those signs if you know you aren't supposed to have them.
Right, because customs rules can be bizarrely strict.
Yeah.
We aren't just talking about illegal goods. We're talking about like a battery pack for a CPAP machine or prescription insulin needles.
Yes, or even just a random apple or a bag of agricultural snacks you brought from your kitchen counter.
An apple. Exactly.
If you reflexively say, no, I have nothing, but the back of your mind knows you have a bag full of complex medical gear or undeclared organic food, your autonomic nervous system is going to betray you.
You literally can't help it.
You can't. Your amygdala spikes because you fear getting caught. The officer will see your eyes subconsciously flick down toward your bag. They'll hear that slight hitch in your breathing.
Oh, man.
That is the trigger. You end up looking like a hardened smuggler over a granola bar.
So it's the cognitive load of the lie that catches you, not the item itself.
Yes, exactly. So the professional move here is proactive transparency. You short-circuit the entire behavioral test.
How so?
Instead of a robotic defensive no, you lean into it. I have prescription medications for personal use and some sealed snacks in my backpack. Do those need to be declared?
You take away their suspicion by offering the information voluntarily.
Yes.
You're basically saying, I have nothing to hide. You decide if you care about this.
Officers respect honesty because honesty is efficient. An honest, proactive declaration delivered calmly will almost always clear you vastly faster than a nervous, defensive denial.
I love that. Okay, we are in the absolute home stretch now. The officer has tested your plans, evaluated your routes, and verified your honesty regarding your luggage.
Almost there.
Now, you just need to stick the landing. We are closing the data loop. This is the final phase of exit proof, and it almost always hinges on the anchor address. Where will you be staying?
And this is the moment where travelers, having survived the gauntlet, suddenly freeze because their mind goes completely blank on the exact street address of their rental.
Oh, I have lived this nightmare.
Haven't we all?
You're standing there thinking, oh no, is the Airbnb on 4th Street or 5th Street? Let me pull up my email. Wait, the airport Wi-Fi isn't connecting?
The panic sets in.
And suddenly, after doing everything right, you look incredibly suspicious just because you have a terrible memory for numbers.
But the insider secret of the border system is that they generally do not care about the zip code.
They don't.
No. They are testing your premeditation and your control of the situation. They just need an anchor point. You only need the name of the establishment and the city.
Just the name and city.
Yes. I'm staying at the Pacific Hotel in Manhattan. Or I'm staying with my cousin in downtown Toronto. It proves you aren't wandering off the plane aimlessly. It proves you have a structured plan.
And the ultimate, undeniable proof of that structured plan is the return ticket. Can I see your onward travel?
This is the non-negotiable physical proof that you will not become a permanent burden to their system, and you must have it accessible instantly.
Going back to our open book test.
Exactly. Fumbling through your phone to find a PDF while your battery dies is a massive behavioral red flag at the worst possible time.
It's the zipper wrestling all over again.
But beyond the flight ticket, there is another element of exit proof that catches many people totally off guard, and that is travel medical insurance.
Wait, medical insurance? I can easily understand checking for a return flight so I don't become an illegal resident. But how does my personal health insurance factor into national border security?
It comes down to macroeconomics. If you are entering the Schengen zone in Europe on certain visas or traveling to places like Cuba, they literally require proof of travel medical insurance.
Really?
Yeah, sometimes demanding minimum coverage of 30,000 euros.
Wow.
These countries operate on nationalized or heavily subsidized healthcare systems. Historically, they have lost millions to uninsured tourists who slip and fall or have a medical emergency and then default on the hospital bills.
Leaving the local taxpayers to absorb the cost.
Exactly. Showing that insurance policy proves you are a self-sufficient, economically low-risk traveler.
That makes total sense when you zoom out and look at the sheer scale of the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So how do we package all of this up? How do we ensure we don't fail at this final, crucial hurdle?
Organization is key.
Right. And the absolute best method we found for this is what we call the trip sheet.
The trip sheet.
Before you ever board your departing flight, you create a single offline folder on your phone, or genuinely, even better, print out one physical piece of paper.
Paper never runs out of battery.
It really doesn't.
Yeah.
It has the name of your hotel, your return flight date and confirmation code, and your insurance policy number. When they ask for proof, you don't dig. You don't scroll. You don't rely on airport Wi-Fi. You just hand them the proof.
And then?
And this is perhaps the hardest part for those of us who naturally want to fill dead air with chatter. You pause and you wait. Silence is your greatest ally.
That is the absolute essence of closing the data loop. You let the documentation speak for itself. You remove all cognitive load from the interaction.
So to synthesize everything we've unpacked today, the international border is not a trap designed to trick innocent people.
Not at all.
It is a high-speed, high-stakes efficiency test. It is a massive algorithmic bureaucracy checking to see if your physical composure matches the footprint of your digital ghost.
Perfectly said.
When you eliminate the micro-hesitations, when you reframe your colloquial language to prove stability, and when you proactively offer your physical exit proof without fumbling, you close those data loops instantly. Calm is your currency, and confidence is your clearance.
It fundamentally changes how you view the travel experience, doesn't it?
It really does. The next time you are on an international trip and you find yourself exhausted, standing under those buzzing fluorescent lights, staring at that unreadable face behind the glass, you aren't going to feel like a suspect anymore.
No, you're not.
You will understand the invisible machine. You will know exactly what the script is, and you will know exactly how to play the game.
But before we wrap up today's deep dive, there is one final, fascinating, and somewhat provocative thought we need to ponder.
Well, lay it on me.
We've spent all this time discussing how human officers read your microexpressions and cross-reference your digital data, right?
Right.
But as biometric dates and facial recognition technology rapidly advance, we are rapidly approaching an era where these verbal questions might disappear entirely.
Completely disappear.
Completely. In the near future, we're talking maybe 2026 to 2030, AI cameras mounted in the ceiling might analyze your gait, your microexpressions, your heart rate, and your digital footprint the very moment you step off the jet bridge.
Just walking off a plane.
Algorithms will process your physiological baseline and decide your clearance before you ever even see a human face.
Wow. So the open book test happens entirely in the background without you even knowing it started.
Exactly. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. Will surrendering our physical and digital data to invisible AI make international travel totally seamless and less stressful?
Whoa.
Or will it make walking through an airport infinitely more terrifying?
Something for you to seriously think about the next time you're standing in that line. watching those unreadable stares behind the glass. Safe travels, everyone.